Dr. Marcy Adelman, a beloved friend, advocate, community organizer, and one of the first out therapists in San Francisco, and a mentor to many, including myself, Riley, and Elena. Marcy's identities and values as a Jewish woman and lesbian have guided her life's work in service to the LGBTQIA+ population with a focus on comprehensive supportive services of community.
How did Judaism impact my values? Greatly. I really grew up with an idea that I wanted to make the world a better place. Somehow, my life would be about service. I wasn't sure what that would be, but that was an important value. And it was handed down by my grandmother and my dad and my family and the culture I was in.
Marcy learned to apply the lessons of self-acceptance from her experiences growing up Jewish to accept herself as a lesbian. Marcy was unsure of how she could live an out life in the U.S., so after college, she went to Europe.
I went to Europe to come out, and so I got a gays guide to Europe, and a urine real pass, so that I could travel around Europe and meet people in all the different countries, and which I did. I would go to the bars and meet people and spend nights with people, and what I learned was something I needed to learn, which was that being a lesbian was about being in love, that being a lesbian was about being in love and having a relationship and building a life with someone. I had the good fortune to come to San Francisco after Europe, living in Europe, and landed in San Francisco, not knowing anybody, but really excited about being able to live an out life in my own country. And little did I know that I was going to land in the middle of the gay liberation movement.
Once in San Francisco, she realized how she wanted to live her life and found purpose as a therapist.
So for me, being a therapist, out lesbian psychotherapist, was a part of being a political act, being part of the gay women's liberation movement, where we would meet and have consciousness-raising groups and talk about what we wanted to do and what we wanted to be out in the world and how could we do that and also be out, and how we needed to support each other. It was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. It was important because in those days, being queer was still a part of the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, that had us as mentally ill. And of course, we weren't mentally ill. So making a statement that I was both a lesbian and a therapist, and that I was out, was political and had an impact. But the other thing it did, and just as importantly, is from the moment you started working with someone, they knew you were lesbian, and I knew you were lesbian or gay or bisexual or whatever. And that wasn't the reason why you were there. That wasn't the reason why you had problems in your life. If you had problems, it was because of the discrimination against you as a queer person. And that was from the very first moment you would meet with me. You would know that.
At the time, there was a disparity in research about, for, and by queer people. Marcy began to learn the power of research as data is necessary to support lasting change.
I knew I wanted to do research, but I didn't want to make a living doing it. Mm-hmm. Right? I wanted to really work with people, not research. But I knew research for our community was going to be absolutely essential, and it still is. When I was walking across the campus, when I was at San Francisco State University, and I was in my 20s, and I was studying clinical psychology. I was getting a master's there. And I glanced at the school newspaper, and it said Dr. Fred Minigerode from University of San Francisco was coming to the San Francisco State campus to do the first study on gay men and aging. And I was just so excited about it. I ran to the nearest phone booth. Yes, they had phone booths in those days. And dropped in the money. And then I had to think, oh my God, what am I going to say to this doctor? I needed to come out to him. And so that was, I think, one of the first times I came out to a total stranger on the phone. So I was a little bit nervous, to say the least, but very excited. And he answered. He said hello, and I said, "Well, I just saw that you're bringing this study to San Francisco State University, and I'm in the master's program here, and I'm a lesbian, and I want to ask you a question." And he said, "Well, what is it?" And I said, "Well, why aren't you including lesbians in your study? It's the first National Institute of Health study ever done on gay men and aging." And I said, "Why aren't you including lesbians?" And he's long pause, and he said, "Well, if I could get enough participants, I would have included them." And so I said, right off the top of my head, I said, "Well, if I can arrange for you to have lesbian participants in your study, would you include them?" And he said, "Absolutely. Why don't you come right on over?" That was an amazing experience, because I really had the opportunity to meet all these elders, which is really what it was all about in so many ways for me, always, is meeting elders and finding out what our history was about, what their lives were about.
Marcy's direct community engagement and witnessing of the housing crisis for queer elders in San Francisco led her late partner, Jeanette Gurovich, and others to create Open House. Open House is an organization dedicated to providing housing, support services, and community programs tailored to the needs of older adults in the queer community, addressing their unique challenges.
The rents were going up and seniors were being evicted. And so the people who had actually built this community, from the 50s, were being forced out because they couldn't afford the escalating rents. We were losing our community, so somebody had to do something. When you walk into our buildings or our services, community services, not just open houses, but community services, and you feel like you're walking into community. And you are walking into community. And that makes a difference, because the message is you're not alone. And we go the extra mile here for you, right? I've continued my work in policy and programming at the state level. And I've been fortunate to be at the state level at the California Commission on Aging, just at the time when the state is designing a new master plan for aging. It's just been an honor and a privilege to be a part of that process, which is build a new infrastructure for this diverse population of seniors, of elders here in California. And being there and being out and being able to talk about the need for programs that are culturally appropriate for LGBTQI folks as we age, being there and talking about sexual orientation and gender identity, data collection, and really at a time when it could have such a great impact. LGBTQIA aging hasn't actually changed very much in all the years I've been working in this area. When I first started out, I would talk about isolation and loneliness and discrimination, financial insecurity, housing insecurity. All these things play, unfortunately, too important a part of our aging. And although over the years we've been able to create culturally appropriate services and housing, and queer in many places, like here in San Francisco, queer the services, so we don't just have to deliver those services ourselves. And so there are more services available, aging services for the community that way. And so we've made tremendous progress in my lifetime. But still, the issues are the same: discrimination, financial insecurity, loneliness and isolation. Why those things? It's because most of us don't have children and live alone as we age, and our friends, which are often our chosen family, are of similar age, and so they're dealing with aging issues themselves and often aren't available to help each other. So it's easy to get isolated with those circumstances. And so the answer has always been community, because that's how we can age well. In community, by community, and for community.
I'm Riley.
I'm Ranesha.
I'm Elena.
We wanted to express to you how did we personally change throughout this semester working with Marcy. Elena, will you start by saying how did you personally change?
Yeah, going forward in my career and studies in clinical psychology and wanting to do therapy and also research, I'm inspired by how Marcy was able to always do her own activism work and her own private practice and research without compromising her values in any of those areas or her work in any of those areas. I've not known how I would be able to do that, so I'm really, really valuing the insights that she's given. How about you, Ranesha?
I think the biggest change or thing that I am taking away from my time with Marcy is just the importance of elder care, mental health, community, and services. I think Marcy has gotten to know me very well over these 10 or so weeks, and has dropped a few nuggets of information or just knowledge that have really stuck with me and have helped me kind of like really dig my heels in and stick with this path that has not been easy for me. So thank you for that, Marcy. And Riley?
I'd say for me, Marcy really showed me how I can connect all of the different aspirations I have for my career and professionally, but also the things that I've been motivated to accomplish within the community for queer people. And she showed how we can do that through connecting everything as a psychologist, as a therapist, and being able to accomplish your advocacy and community support through that work as well. She also gave me a major lesson in the power of community, and something that is so life-saving, and it's something that we really need to all be fighting for every day for ourselves, but also for the people around us.
Yeah, and we just want to express that we're so happy that we met each other and became friends with Marcy and just formed these lifelong connections. So we're super grateful for you, Marcy. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you, Marcy.
Marcy, thank you for your work.
Thank you for your lessons.
And thank you for being you.